Before there was a house at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, before marble, paint, and porticos, there was a river and the people who lived along it. Long before European maps trimmed the shoreline into property lines, the place we now call Washington was part of a world shaped by the Nacotchtank, the Anacostan people, who fished the Potomac, tended fields on its banks, and held stories tied to every bend of that water. Their lives were seasonal and precise, planting, harvesting, trading. For them, the river was a web that connected communities, not a boundary. When European ships crossed the ocean and colonists pushed inland, everything changed. Lands were bought, claimed, bargained, and seized. The slow, inexorable logic of settlement reshaped coast and forest. In time, political necessity and compromise produced the District of Columbia, a neutral seat of government carved from Maryland and Virginia. A capital was needed, not merely a city, but a symbol for a republic newly born. George Washington, a towering figure in the American imagination, walked the banks of the Potomac and surveyed the land. He imagined a capital that would stand not as an ornament for one man, but as a home for an experiment, self-government. He chose a hill that rose gently above the river, high enough to be seen, sheltered enough to provide a view, close enough to the water to remind citizens of the trade routes that bound the nation. This plot would hold the house for the nation's chief magistrate. An international design competition was held. From the drawings and models submitted, an Irish-born architect named James Hoban won the commission. Hoban's neoclassical vision borrowed from ancient Rome and Georgian symmetry, an architecture that spoke of order, restraint, and the new republic's claim to civic virtue. The president's house, as it was first called, would be both home and working seat of power. The cornerstone was ceremonially laid in October of 1792. Craftsmen and laborers raised stone and timber. Among those laboring were European masons and laborers, artisans with guild traditions, and, a truth that demands we say it plainly, enslaved African men who quarried, lifted, and set those first blocks. The paradox is stark. A building intended to embody liberty was built, in part, by those denied it. For years the structure grew. Sandstone walls, timber beams, fireplaces, rooms planned for functions that would evolve across centuries. When John Adams walked into the unfinished home in 1800, he felt the weight of the responsibility of place. He wrote to his wife with a prayer that the house be blessed. The building, even as a shell, became a symbol, a test of whether a republic could make a residence reflect the values it claimed. Thomas Jefferson, who followed Adams, shaped how the house would be used. He loved gardens, and gardens let the house breathe. He opened the palace's doors to visitors in an early gesture toward public access. Yet Jefferson also ran the government in a house that was not yet a home in the modern sense. Fires, cold nights, a house without full comfort. The early presidents adapted royal trappings into Republican clothes. Then the fires came in a different sense. War crossed into the capital. In 1814, British forces marched on Washington during a broader conflict with the young nation. They set the Capitol and the president's house ablaze. Flames consumed the interior. The public face of the republic blackened with smoke. When the smoke cleared, only a charred shell remained. From ruin rose repair. James Hoban returned to rebuild, to reforge the house into the White House the nation would come to know. White paint covered charcoal-stained stone. The south and north porticos were conceived and built, and the mansion once again took its place as the seat of the executive. Over the years, the White House was less a static monument than a living organism. Each presidency left traces: mahogany here, curtains there, a new office wing, windows widened, a portico added. First ladies shaped its interiors with taste and meaning. Presidents reshaped its functions to match the needs of age. In the 19th century, the house hosted banquets, treaty signings, family crises, and public mourning. When Lincoln sat at his desk, the war overhead pressed in. When the nation mourned, his body lay in the East Room, and citizens filed past to honor him. Those halls carried grief and will. The House also witnessed the relentless expansion of the federal government. By the turn of the 20th century, work demanded more room and a modern infrastructure. Theodore Roosevelt initiated major renovations and substantive changes to accommodate increased staffing and functions. Through a succession of architects and curators, the White House earned a West Wing to concentrate the business of government, an Oval Office where presidents could gather cabinet, and subterranean service spaces to support stealthy operations. And yet time took its toll. Lasting stone can still fail when mothered by centuries of use. By the mid-20th century, the White House's bones sagged, floor joists cracked, lead plumbing corroded, decorative plaster dropped to the floor. President Harry S. Truman faced a choice: shore up a building piece by piece or rebuild the interior for the future. He chose the latter. For 4 years, the family lived in Blair House as the White House was gutted and reconstructed behind its surviving external walls. Steel replaced wood. Concrete carried new loads. The house was modernized for a modern state. When Truman returned, he could say honestly that the house had, in a literal sense, been born anew. But the White House is more than structure. It is ritual and theater. It is a room where treaties are signed on one day and family photos taken the next. It is a stage for statecraft and for spectacle. The Rose Garden witnesses ceremonial plantings that become national symbols, births of policy, press conferences, reflayings. The South Lawn hosts parades and Easter eggs. The East Room has seen concerts and funerals, the laughter of children and the hush of mourning. In every corner, rituals are performed. Staff prepare dinners for foreign dignitaries. Advisors whisper in corridors. Guards keep a watch that is both protective and ceremonial. The story of the White House also contains the stories often left at the margins, those whose labor enabled the mansion's daily life. Enslaved people labored for presidents in the 18th and early 19th centuries. They cooked, swept, tended grounds, even helped in building. Their names often went unrecorded. It is vital, when telling the full story, that we acknowledge these hands. Their presence makes the White House a site of paradox, the emblem of national aspiration, built and maintained in part by enforced labor. Over the decades, different presidents left imprints that would define eras. Andrew Jackson brought a populist, sometimes tempestuous, style that tested decorum. The Civil War years left the House shadowed by division. As the nation industrialized, the White House adapted to be a center of administrative power. The Roosevelt years, both Theodore and Franklin, expanded the role of the presidency, and with it, the House's function as nerve center. Theodore's renovations and Franklin Delano Roosevelt's informal use of the House as command center during World War II created a modern presidency that used the White House as both shelter and statecraft. The White House's cultural life deepened under the influence of fascinating first ladies. Abigail Adams managed a home with intellect and steadiness. Dolly Madison famously saved portraits and silverware during the 1814 burning. In the 20th century, Eleanor Roosevelt used the House to host discussions and to frame policy outreach. Jacqueline Kennedy, with exacting taste and devotion to history, led a restoration that transformed the White House into a museum-quality residence. She cataloged furnishings with scholars, sought authenticity, and opened its rooms to television cameras, bringing the people inside in a new way. But the White House is never merely symbolic. It is also a physical site of conflict. Its fence has been climbed, its lawn protested. Movements assembled at its gates to demand justice, suffrage, civil rights, anti-war petitions, climate activism. The House has been both beacon and barricade. When presidents signed emancipation and when they signed declarations of war, the White House held the formal weight of governance and the informal contestation of citizens. Security has changed in scale and nature. In the early years, militia could parade and the president might walk with some civic safety. As threats multiplied, foreign aggression, assassination, modern terrorism, structural security changed. Secret Service agents, armaments, and technologies layered protection, secure rooms, classified communications, armored motorcades. The White House sits on a tightly guarded island of access where the symbolic openness of democracy negotiates with the reality of risk. The House also commands rituals of hospitality for nations. State dinners have hosted kings and popes, generals and Nobel laureates, artisans and astronauts. The menu may reveal culinary diplomacy, but the choreography, a procession on the North Portico, a walk down the state floor, a toast in the East Room, is theater with real consequence. A handshake under chandeliers can precede treaties. A photograph on the grand staircase can signal new alliances. The White House stages the smallest gestures that sometimes have the largest political force. Not all chapters have been elegant. Scandals etch themselves into corners. The turmoil of Watergate transforming the Oval Office into theater for resignations and reconciliations. Impeachment proceedings testing precedent and the limits of public trust. Acute political polarization spilling into the House's daily rhythms. Yet each crisis also revealed the House's backbone: institutional continuity. The residence has absorbed ignominy and come through as a locus where processes, however messy, continue. Technology shaped its operations. Electricity, telegraph, radio, television, and now the internet rearranged the pace and intensity of governance. Presidents wired the House across eras. Lincoln's telegraph messages humming in wartime. Franklin Roosevelt's fireside chats via radio, knitting a country in crisis. Televised press conferences bringing the president's face into living rooms. The modern White House updating social feeds and live streams to speak instantly to millions. Each innovation compressed space and enlarged the House's auditory reach. Across centuries, the White House served as a mirror of cultural life. Christmas trees and concerts, exhibitions of art and native crafts, celebrations of ethnic heritages, the hosting of chefs who introduced cuisines that became part of the American table. The House is, in this sense, a cultural repository, where collections of paintings hang, quilts are displayed, and objects speak of eras and ideals. Curators and historians, working quietly, shape public memory by choosing what hangs in a room and what sits in a drawer. There are lesser-known corridors and subterranean veins to the White House. Service tunnels, the bunker-like defended rooms, spaces where planners convene in crises. There are secretaries who have kept institutional memory across administrations, turning over ceremonial keys, preserving protocols. There are cooks, seamstresses, maintainers, careers that span decades, and invisible hands that make the House function day after day. Their work reminds us that statecraft is also domestic labor. And there are small human moments that outshine pomp. A president taking his child for a walk on the South Lawn. A dog sleeping under the Resolute desk. A first lady arranging a floral display in a hurry between meetings. These domestic scenes puncture the gravitas and remind us that the building is fundamentally a family home for those who serve. The White House has been remade repeatedly. Rebuilt after burning, renovated for modern life, gutted to ensure safety, and redecorated to reflect eras. Those renovations tell a national story of survival, of adaptation, and of reinvention. Each layer, paint, plaster, beam, contains a history of decisions made by those charged both with tradition and innovation. Yet even as the building's walls changed, the public gaze remained constant. Americans and visitors from around the globe stand on Pennsylvania Avenue and look, sometimes in hope, sometimes in critique. The fence frames the building, an accessible distance that allows for gaze but not unmediated touch. The White House's spectacle draws film crews, tourists, protesters, and pilgrims. The building's ubiquity in film, television, and photography makes its image itself part of how the country sees itself. The White House is also an archive. Letters from constituents accumulate, petitions arrive, gifts from foreign leaders pile into storage, quilts with political messages hang for seasons. The House stores material memory and institutional memory. Its rooms have heard the voices of politicians and poets, of activists and generals. Those recorded words end up in the archive, and later historians read the language of an era and sentences once spoken under the same chandeliers. The moral frame of the House is not static. When movements for equality surged, civil rights, women's suffrage, LGBTQ+ rights, demonstrators leveraged the House's symbolic gravity. When Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the Lincoln Memorial and called for justice, he did so within the sightlines of national institutions. Protesters understood that the White House is not only a roof and walls. It is a place where moral pressure meets executive discretion. As the 21st century progressed, the White House continued to adapt. Sustainability initiatives on the grounds, digital engagement with global publics, and evolving security for a world of new threats. It retained functions both ceremonial and operational. The Oval Office as nerve center, the Situation Room for instant crisis work, the East Room for ceremonies that knit national memories. What does the White House mean today? It is a living paradox. It stands as a fortress, yet also a house, a command center that opens for tours, a family residence that shelters the head of state. Its durability comes from its blend of public and private, duty and daily life. It is a spatial symbol for the American promise. Imperfect, contested, aspirational. Imagine, just for a moment, the sequence of footsteps that have crossed the main stair, indigenous feet by the Potomac, the measured stride of early surveyors, the echo of presidential cadence, the rush of Secret Service boots. Each footprint marks an era. Each sound in its halls is an accumulation of joy, despair, policy, and play. If the White House teaches anything, it is that buildings tell stories not only by design, but by use. A house that endures through revolution, fire, reconstruction, and scandal must be understood as an instrument of the people who live in it and the people who watch it. It shapes the nation as much as it is shaped by the nation. So when you peer through the fence on Pennsylvania Avenue, remember it is the product of many hands and many histories. Indigenous waters, enslaved work, immigrant craftsmen, political compromise, architectural vision, wartime urgency, the patient hand of curation. It remains because the nation it houses remains in conversation with itself. The White House is a vessel for American memory, messy, luminous, and alive. And yes, it is also a place where the candles melt a little faster after a long state dinner, where someone forgets an umbrella on a rainy day, and where a dog will always find the softest patch of sunlight to sleep in. May that house continue to be a house of argument and art. May it be open to repair and redress. The story does not end with one administration or one era. It continues as the Potomac continues, shaping and shaped. This is the whole, complicated, living history of the United States White House. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel, to help this channel grow and to make more content like this, please subscribe, like and share. Thank you.